What's up, everybody? Styles Files here, Alan Styles, and it's time to talk about it. We've been beating around the bush for years now. The Niner fan base, I don't think they're any different to any other fan bases, right? But the question ultimately is the hate that Trey Lance has received, is it racially motivated? And yeah, I would say as a black man, I feel like I do have a interesting perspective on this, and the people that I've talked to, whether they be black, whether they be white, also have helped me figure out what this really all means and how we should really all look at this. Ultimately, I have no clue. I have no clue what people talk about at the dinner table. I'm kind of glad that I don't. You know, those superpowers that you could come up with. You wish you could read people's minds. Not really. I really don't. But I will say this. When it comes to Trey Lance, it is very hard for fans to separate who a person is versus what they were supposed to represent. Trey Lance was the third overall pick. He represented moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo, who a lot of people thought handicapped the offense. And Kyle Shanahan, who is seen as this offensive genius. He is. Maybe not a QB guru, but an offensive genius. This is the guy that he trusted, that he believed could take the Niners to the next level. And he was wrong. He was wrong. I think at this point we can admit that he was wrong. When you look at Trey Lance and you brought him in the building, Kyle, he was slower than you thought, and he wasn't as accurate as you thought. I don't know how that happens. I know we were still getting out of COVID, but I have no clue how that happens. That is malpractice. And Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and the Niners organization better be thanking whoever they pray to every single day that Brock Purdy arrived with the Mr. Irrelevant pick. And yes, they made that pick, so I'll give him some kudos there. It also helps that he has a ridiculous amount of weapons. But I can't say that when Trey Lance hasn't looked that good. But at the same time, the hate that you have seen for Trey Lance, the way I see it is, it depends on what they're talking about. If you just talk about, and you can tell when things are coded. If it's just, hey man, Trey Lance hasn't been able to get out there, he's been injured, what do you want? Brock Purdy comes in, he balls out. Why else would I want to move on from Trey Lance, and why would I not want to go with Brock Purdy? Those types of people I can have conversations with. When you start talking about Trey Lance's hairline, when you start talking about the way he processes things, it's just a coded language that I think black people deal with and have dealt with for a very long time. And then you would go to that same person, they say, hey, well, I never said anything racist. Maybe consciously you did it, but maybe subconsciously you said something that, I don't really like how that sounded. And I think that is a lot of the things that we're seeing with Trey Lance when it comes to those people that move it off of football, but even if they are using football, they use it in an interesting way. But when it comes to the football version of Trey Lance, I don't believe that any of the hate that Trey Lance is getting has been racially motivated, because it doesn't have to be. It honestly doesn't have to be. He has not done anything in this league. So why would somebody have to be racist to hate on Trey Lance? All they have to say is, why wouldn't I hate on Trey Lance? He's done absolutely nothing. Now, it's not Trey Lance's fault that Kyle Shanahan decided to give up those picks to go up and get him. It's not Trey Lance's fault that his finger was messed up that first year. It's not Trey Lance's fault that his foot was broken the season that they decided to give him the keys to the franchise. None of that is his fault, but it doesn't change the fact that he represents a failure within the organization with that pick, and a big failure. You ever hear a song that reminds you of an ex, and maybe it wasn't the best breakup? That's Trey Lance. Every time you hear that song, you think about that ex, and you think about how things didn't end so well. Every time Trey Lance does anything, opens his mouth, is on the field, he represents a huge miss on the part of the Niners organization. The pick never made any sense. You have a Super Bowl ready roster, and you decide to pick the quarterback that needs the most work. In what world does that make any sense? Now, the only saving grace for Kyle Shanahan is that Zach Wilson basically looks like a bust too. So out of that whole group, I don't know what to do with Mac Jones. Out of that whole group, at least Trevor Lawrence, who was the consensus #1 pick since the day he stepped on Clemson's campus. Besides that whole draft class quarterback-wise feels like it was not as highly touted as a lot of people thought. So that's the only thing saving Kyle Shanahan besides Brock Purdy. So in closing, do I think that the hate for for Trey Lance is racially motivated. As far as I can tell, for, I don't know, I guess the people that are able to keep it within football, no, I don't, because I don't think it has to be. But that's not to say that there aren't racists that don't like Trey Lance, but that's just not a Niner thing. That wouldn't be any single team. Everybody is dealing with those issues. So I think that a lot of people get into chat rooms. I don't know why I said chat rooms there, Twitter spaces and things like that. And they try to weed out these guys. And yeah, they'll tell on themselves, but ultimately, they don't have to, because they can hide behind the fact that Trey Lance has done absolutely nothing in this league. And that is why I want the Niners to just let him go, because I do think that he can do some things if he has an opportunity. Sometimes you just got to cut bait and move on. Free Trey. That's all I got for you. Be safe, be well, be wise. Peace.